Before we start, thank you so much for helping me to reach 400 subs. This story begins with a gate appearing silently, on the street corners, by the seaside, in shadowy places where no one dared to go. It looked like a gate but never opened, couldn't be broken or moved, and its true nature only became clear. A few years passed, and the gate suddenly opened, and a bright light emerged inside. One of the gates on the seaside had opened and released a lot of goblins that started attacking the people on that beach. The sky and earth turned red, amid screams and shouts. They descended from the heavens, cold and distant, looking down on them with disdain. A young girl was crying, calling for Enma. Their place was in a war, and Enma tried to calm her down. Her name was Ayumi, and he was assuring her everything was going to be okay. Enma was exhausted and had blood dripping from his mouth, saying he was on her side. Then a monster approached them and swung his dagger towards Enma, and he had wounds already on his back. Enma promised to protect her no matter what, as he was slowly falling. Ayumi panicked as she was calling Enma not to die, and started to beg God that she would be good from now on. Enma was lying on top of her and asking if it was warm. Ayumi immediately hugged Enma tightly, and her eyes burst into tears. As she was begging, a bright light emerged, and the monster was dazzled by it. The bright light was coming from Ayumi and Enma, and the monster couldn't help himself. Ayumi yelled not to take Enma, and the bright light shone all over the place as all the monsters had been killed. Both of them were saved by the unknown power that came from, and Enma called her. There were no demands, no explanations, and not even a reason behind that attack. Some people noticed something unusual in front of them. It turned out to be a gigantic demonic monster, and its aura was overflowing. The other people started calling their loved ones, and others expressed pain. Enma remembered what the angel said to them. Among the 7 envoys, he was the first. Enma woke up and was confused about where he was. He quickly sat down, touching his chest, and wondered why he didn't feel pain, and even his wounds were already gone. Then the doctor came in, saying he must thank the awakened who saved his life. The doctor explained that a great disaster happened right when the gates opened, and 24% of the population died. They were suddenly gifted with abilities, and they became awakened. At great cost, humanity survived the first calamity. Then a young girl was rushing toward his room, excited to see him. It turned out it was Ayumi, and she immediately hugged Enma. The doctor informed that he was saved by a rare talent in healing and purification called a light attribute awakened, and that was Ayumi. Ayumi was glad that Enma was alive, and it put a warm smile on her face. A few years passed by, and the city was completely different, where new buildings had been built, and the street were busy. A woman was watching a live stream on her phone, and a girl welcomed them to her stream. The girl introduced herself as Akagi Ayumi, 16 years old, and a hunter, announcing she was heading into another raid today. It's been 10 years since then. The world has changed completely. After the disaster, dungeons began appearing everywhere, commonly known as gates. To prepare for the second envoy's arrival, Hunter began to explore and clear the ever-increasing number of gates, and that's how hunters rose to prominence. An age of despair and injustice, but humanity didn't cower in fear, and technology was pretty famous, so gate raids quickly became a popular phenomenon. Now, many awakened dive into gates with cameras in tow, and someone was recording. Ayumi pointed to a dungeon gate, stating it was a new challenge. Ayumi mentioned her senior hunter, Minace Reika, telling her to get ready. On the screen, Ayumi announces it is time to try a B-rank solo, and assures them to do their best to live up to her expectations. As Ayumi pressed the OK button, she reminded everyone not to make any hurtful comments ever, and she'd block anyone who dared without any hesitation. Ayumi cheerfully announced that the hunting had begun. It's been a year since Ayumi started streaming, and wanting to be independent, Ayumi is now a breakout rookie and one of the top streamers. Enma, 22 years old, an engineer, helping her out between jobs, as her cameraman and moderator. Enma thanked Reika for letting Ayumi have a senior to look up to. But Enma was not happy about the audience who were trolling Ayumi's live, and felt disgusted. Meanwhile, someone was watching and reading the comments at the same time. She couldn't believe what she was just reading. It was Reika who felt a kind of sadness since all the comments were aimed at her. As Ayumi entered the dungeon, she started to cast her skill called Light Attribute Intermediate Technique, Ray Fall. Then, a bright light circle appeared and hit those monsters. Ayumi expresses that since it's her first B-rank solo, the enemies are definitely tough, and it's time to end this one blow. As the goblins were slowly approaching, Ayumi summoned her skill called Light Attribute Advanced Technique, Harvest of Stella. Ayumi summoned her magic spear as well. She started to swing it, and a bright light appeared on the place. Enma called her out and started to worry since she saw her struggling, as Enma wished that he was awakened too. Ayumi responded, not worried, and Enma was surprised. Ayumi smiled at Enma as sweat dripped down her face. She assured everyone, especially Enma, that she wouldn't lose after all, and the audience started cheering for her. as she raised her spear and summoned her Angurlic waves of heaven. Ayumi hit it directly at the goblins. Even though she was exhausted, she smiled at the camera, and the audience praised her power, complimenting that she was amazing. Enma was glad that Ayumi finished them off, even though it got close, but Reika's advice paid off. But still, Enma was disappointed and wondered how people could write such awful things about his sister. Ayumi sat down, saying she needed a short break, and some people suggested she should drink a mana potion, while the other people noticed someone was behind her. Her fan commented that she just saw someone behind her back. Meanwhile, Reika blamed Ayumi, saying that it was her fault. Reika smiled wickedly as she planned an act of revenge for Ayumi pushing her career down. Ayumi quickly stood up as she noticed someone. A group of men was behind Enma, and she quickly called Enma, but it was too late, since the red-masked man had already swung his arm, aiming at Enma's neck. Enma was caught off guard, and he was completely knocked off, as the phone was on the ground. The blonde man told his companion that if he won a bet that Ayumi was a virgin, and the red-masked man complimented that she was cuter in person than on stream. Both of them smiled wickedly as they had a bad plan for Ayumi. The blonde man summoned the blood attribute advanced technique, cruel arm, and a magic circle appeared. The blonde arm was overwhelmed by its power, telling her not to be gentle with her, and he stated he would avoid the face, to save the fun for later. Ayumi felt scared, stating she didn't know their motives, and she didn't expect them to talk about it. The blonde man chuckled, saying he liked her even though she was out of mana and still glaring like that. Even though Ayumi was exhausted, she tried to summon her light attribute basic technique, but since she was out of mana, it didn't work. The blonde man planned that they should play a little. The blonde man grabbed Ayumi from the ground, and the stream was still ongoing. Ayumi started to cry and tried to call for Enma's help. They started assaulting her, and the blonde man was satisfied that Ayumi was indeed a virgin and demanded that her companion pay him 10k yen. The red-masked man couldn't believe that the rumor was fake, and the blonde man was surprised that Ayumi wasn't moving at all. Enma didn't know his strength and was still lying on the ground, and the blonde man ordered them to clean it up. The red-masked man suggested that they should leave as their mission was done, and his other companion thought that Ayumi's body should be fed to a monster. Then a mutated lich arrived, and he thanked it because it was the perfect timing. The red-masked man grabbed the body of Ayumi, as they should start with her, and clarified if there were no leftovers needed. But then, a fire suddenly appeared, and the ground started to crack. Enma's body started to fire, and both of them were surprised. The red-masked man was confused about what was happening as they kept looking at the fire. As the fire was getting bigger and bigger, the mutated lich started to run for his life. Both of them started to panic, and the red-masked man thought Enma was not awake. The brown-masked man responded that it was the blonde man who had taught him. Enma's eyes were glowing, and the fire was getting stronger and stronger, while the brown-masked man stated that Enma wasn't awakened. Enma's phone burned, and a phoenix flame was forming in the air. Enma tried to move his body, but it didn't work at all, wondering why his body couldn't move. He swore that he would protect Ayumi, and a fire slowly appeared. Then, Enma heard a voice saying that if he wanted power, he must get angry, let his anger burn, and burn his whole being. As he opened his eyes, Enma quickly called Ayumi lying on the ground, and her dress was torn. Enma couldn't believe what he just watching on their camera. Enma was terrified that Ayumi was injured so badly, and her dress and her eyes were looking at Enma. As he was trying to get up, the voice encouraged him to get angry about it, and a fire started to emerge. The fire had emerged on Enma's body, and the mutant was burning as well, while the two masked men were watching them. The red-masked man clarified that Enma was supposed to be useless, and the brown-masked man couldn't believe it after all. Enma began to move his body, and an immense aura flowed over his body. The brown-masked man put Ayumi's body on the floor, saying he must calm down since Enma was barely alive, and ordered him to kill Enma. The red-masked man quickly summoned his skill, Rock Blast, and aimed it at Enma. As the rock's blast was approaching Enma, it was immediately blocked using his fire. The red-masked man felt anxious that his attack didn't reach Enma after all. Enma started to feel hot from his head to his body, but Enma didn't care about it after all, and he was approaching Ayumi. Enma was crying in despair because he knew he couldn't help Ayumi. The brown-masked man suggested they should call the blonde man named Sakura back, and the red-masked man disagreed since he would kill them both. As he was talking, he was touched by Enma, and quickly he was burned alive, while the brown-masked man was shocked. The red-masked man screamed due to the pain as his body turned into ashes, while his companion started to run. The brown-masked man rushed out of the scene, using his skill. Enma's power was slowly back to normal, and he called Ayum's name repeatedly. But Ayumi didn't respond after all. Enma knew that Ayumi had no one else. Even if they turned those guys into the cops, Ayumi would not come back. He recalled that Ayumi once said that even though there was a lot of pain, she wanted to keep smiling for the people who wanted to see her. Enma knew it wasn't her official motto and knew Ayumi was dead already. Enma closed her eyes and smiled, knowing that his promise was already broken. The fire to getting stronger again, and Enma started to burn Ayumi's dead body as he bid farewell to his dear sister. A little while later, Enma opened his eyes and was surprised at the unfamiliar place that he was in. The place was a kind of hell, where a small fire could be seen, and Enma pondered where he was. But then a voice suddenly spoke up, saying he had just arrived, and Enma was shocked at what he was seeing. Enma suspected him of being a demon since he looked like a fallen angel with white hair and wings staring at him. Enma asked if he did end up in hell for being a murderer and if a Yumi made it to heaven. The unknown demon chuckled, stating that the choice between heaven and hell was foolish since humans turn to ash when they die. The unknown demon introduced himself as Vox, a demonkind. Vox informed him this was the world he had created, and he was not dead yet. Enma was surprised and asked if he was alive, if he created this world, and what Vox meant about demonkind. Vox asked if he had heard of the ones sent from heaven, and explained that Vox was their enemy. Vox stated that he hated long explanations, and he'd keep it short and pointed to Enma. Vox explained that Enma had formed a contract with him, and Enma was surprised to hear it. Vox cast his infernal fire and asked if he didn't just feel the presence about it. He smiled wickedly, saying his power was too great for any human, and dared Enma if he could become a god or a demon, he would give it to him. Enma refused his offer, stating he didn't go about deciding things on his own. Enma explained that even if he didn't have any power yet, there was nothing he could do with it. Vox expresses disapproval of what he just said and asks, if he didn't truly have any desire, then what was that raging fire? Vox activated his raging fire skill, and a gigantic fire emerged on Enma. Enma started to yell as his body was burning, and Vox informed him it was the fire of rage. He needed to accept his anger and turn it into power. Vox informed him that his anger awakened him. Vox challenges him that if Enma teams up with him, rage could become his power. Enma understood now that it was the contract he was talking about, and asked why he was doing all of this. Vox explained that he wanted to devour it, his desperation. Vox informed him to form a contract with him and offer up every last drop of despair, since that is sustenance. Vox walked closer to his ears, saying there was someone Enma wanted to drag into the pit of his despair, and he must be honest with himself. Vox called Enma's name and asked what he even gained from revenge while Enma was screaming in agony. While the fire of rage was still burning, Vox stated revenge was meaningless, and he asked what was the meaning behind it. Enma told him who needs a meaning about it. He started to reminisce about Ayumi's smile as his eyes were bursting with blood. Vox announced that the contract was already sealed. As the raging fire skill was slowly fading, Enma stated that he was done with roundabout crap. Enma ordered Vox to teach him how to use this power and called Vox by his full name. Hearing it, Vox was getting more excited, saying he wanted to hear. Vox summoned dummies and assured Enma that in this world, he wouldn't die, and wouldn't get hungry or need to sleep either. As the dummies approached, Vox informed him to use those dummies and master his power. Vox announced that he had already given up his power, and it's all for him. Enma quickly swung his fist, aiming at the dummies. Using his raging fire skill, his power was emerging all over the dummies. Enma continuously attacked those dummies, driven by his despair, and wanted to learn his new power. Enma's attention shifted as he saw one of the dummies standing in front of him. He recalled the one person who killed Ayumi's face on the dummy. Enma got infuriated and hit a fatal blow on that dummy. Meanwhile, Vox was enjoying Enma's doing as he was watching him from afar. After that, Vox wasn't satisfied and reminded Enma to use it all he wanted. Enma was on top of a dead dummy, and Vox stated that he was burning things for a whole year. Turns out that Enma was practicing for a year on Vox World, and his shirt was torn and messy, while Vox looked at Enma stating that he had a question. Since human anger only lasts 6 seconds, it's a fleeting emotion. After 30 million seconds, how does Enma feel? Enma responded that what was burned into his skull, this feeling, is no longer what he felt. Enma felt that even anger wasn't right anymore. Vox announced that he had passed, and he must go back to his world, as he had a contract. Vox summoned his power, and a fire covered Enma's body as he started teleporting. Inside the dark cave, someone was asking if he was still trying hard for it. The man was trying to protect his partner and told the men that if they did anything, they would die. The man counted 1 to 3, and his fist started to glow, and he swung it at the same time. The man wickedly smiled as the count reached 5, and punched the man as the blood dripped on his hands. The girl started to cry and screamed for help as she tried to wake him up. The man stood up and stepped in his head, asking if they didn't conquer the gate, the world's doomed. Still haven't learned a thing since Ayumi's murder a year ago. The man called his companion, and his companion awkwardly smiled as he agreed. The man realized that Ayumi's incident had been a year ago. As he recalled those 2 masked men panicking at his overwhelming power, the man was glad that he got fired from Kurakami's, and knew that it had been a year statute of limitations. A man smiled at the camera as he started streaming on his phone and greeted his audience. It turned out it was Enma, saying he was at a dungeon gate, and he smiled wickedly. The man complained that Enma streaming is such a pain sometimes, and Enma stated that it just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and boom, some streamer gets caught up in it. The man got annoyed and suggested that he turn off his camera. Enma smirked, and a fire started to appear on his body. Not long after, the man was burned alive, and his other companion was shocked upon seeing it. Enma stated that he was new to streaming and warmly welcomed his audience, while his other companion started to panic. The audience was shocked as well and started to ask what he was doing, and others suspected that Enma might be doing some kind of project or alternate reality game. The man earlier felt anxious as he became familiar with Enma's face. Enma exposed his name as Keisuke Sugino, 28 years old, unemployed. Keisuke murdered streamer Ayumi 1 year ago. The audience was shocked and asked if he was the culprit, while Enma's camera was pointed at Keisuke. Enma cast his skill called Bowling Up, and a fire emerged on his body. One audience stated that a viewer reported them, the police, and a rank hunter, Futatabi Fuseo, rushed in, but they vanished without a trace. The audience started to speculate that they needed answers about the issue, and others suspected that the real culprit could be revealed by his eyes. Keisuke's companion got annoyed and asked what he was doing and why he had killed one of his teammates. Enma explained that the rest of them aren't any better: murderers, robbers, rapists, extortionists. They abuse their privileges as hunters, hiding in the shadows of the gate and committing crimes unchecked. Enma asked his audience what they should think happens to trash like theirs, and someone commented that they deserve to die. Keisuke's companion started to swing his arm, aiming at Enma, and his skill sprayed his brain across the pavement. Enma quickly countered it, saying let his sins burn him away, as he glared at the man. Both men started to get burning, and Enma was slowly walking closer to Keisuke like nothing had happened. Enma felt bored with them, and the two men started to burn alive and scream in pain. Keisuke was shocked, while the audience was satisfied with what Enma did, and others ordered to kill Keisuke as well. Enma pointed at Keisuke, assuring his audience that he would die soon, and Keisuke sat down on the ground, terrified. Enma set fires on Keisuke's feet, making him yell in agony. The audience was satisfied and amused by Enma's power at the same time. Enma asked if he had any last words. Keisuke started to apologize to Enma, while the audience requested to put more flames on Keisuke. While the audience started to debate, Keisuke continued apologizing to Enma, as Enma kept staring at him. Then an audience member named Tonkatsu said Keisuke had already said sorry, already demanded to forgive him. Enma notices it and shifts his attention to the drone camera, calling Tonkatsu's name. Enma threatens him that next time he would kill his parents, and he would apologize afterwards, so he would forgive him afterward, and asked if that would work. Some viewers were concerned about what Enma just said, and Enma asked if they thought they were safe just sitting in there watching. On the live stream, Enma shows no remorse while smiling at Keisuke's situation, and the audience were arguing. Vox was delighted since they had contracted to feed him in despair, and he complimented Enma about it. Vox stated isn't limited to just his own. All the anger swirling around him will become his power. He reminded Enma that the more he goes viral, the stronger he becomes. Keisuke was screaming in pain, and didn't know what to do, since the fire on his feet kept burning his feet. Vox laughed wickedly and asked if he killed that guy's parents too, the fire would burn even hotter, and Enma stated he was just joking and there was no way he would do that. Enma wanted to feed Vox more despair, and they preyed on him, and they should hunt is clear. All the criminals who exhausted their evil without restraint, as if it were a spring of this world, Enma's goal is to feed on their despair to his heart's content. Vox smiled and stated do whatever he wants, and that sudden despair is definitely more delicious for him. Vox said that despair of cocky scum be exquisite, just like Keisuke's situation right now, crying and screaming for help. Enma knew that for the killers who killed Ayumi, only despair suited them. Enma called the attention of his audience, saying he was going to mute for a bit, that he had something he wanted to ask Keisuke. Keisuke begs Enma, saying he will do anything just to help him. Keisuke stated that they had a big leader, and Enma responded that Keisuke must tell everything about their leader. But then, Keisuke realized that if he going to confess it, he would be killed as well. Keisuke summoned his skill, and a green light appeared at the place. Even though Keisuke was struggling, he cast his skill called Kamaitashi, aiming at Enma. An overwhelming air had been showing, and the fire on his feet was gone. Keisuke had gone crazy as he thought Enma would die under his power, and the audience was curious about what he was saying. Keisuke cast his strongest power, called the wind attribute, intermediate technique Sylphiosphere. As the gigantic circle had formed, Keisuke compared Enma to a certain person. Enma was nothing to him. He aimed it at Enma's, and a strong wind had occurred at the place. As the wind temporarily ceases, the fire on his feet also lowers the temperature, and Keisuke tries to crawl faster than he could. Keisuke thought that he had already killed Enma, and Enma quickly asked if that's all he could do, a half-hearted wind that merely stirs his flames. Enma walks closer to him, and his fire was raging again, so that Kisuki's power couldn't resist it. Kisuki's face turned pale as he saw Enma, and Enma stated that they had different flames when suffocating from smoke and burning to death. Enma explained that his situation right now burns from the feet up, and the fire reaches his heart, so he couldn't die. Enma asked where the leader was and what kind of skills he had, while Kisuki responded that he didn't know. Kisuki apologized to Enma, asking for mercy on him, and explaining that if he exposed that guy, his life would be in danger. Enma dared Kisuki that if he would expose their leader's name, he would ease the fire on his feet. Kisuki didn't know what to say, as his tears kept welling up in his eyes. Enma wickedly smiled and asked if his foot was in unbearable pain, and Kisuki cried as he didn't have any choice. Kisuki exposes the name of their leader, Kurakami Yaichi, and explains that she was the one who was Ayumi's enemy. Enma looked at his stream and thought that he had almost forgotten the audience, and thanked them for watching his stream. Enma stated that he understood and he would keep his promise. Enma read the comments and asked if they could talk about it, since Kisuki was human after all. As Enma slowly walks away, saying he has already finished his business, he should wrap up the stream now. Kisuki called Enma and complained that fire isn't out, there's still some left, which Enma quickly stopped. Enma explained he would leave it flaming that someone like him, a lowly minion, probably doesn't know much anyway. Enma stated that while savoring the pain and suffering Ayumi inflicted on others, and wishes for Kisuki to burn to death slowly. The fire started to spread again, and he started to scream as the fire was now different from earlier. Kisuki was yelling that he didn't want to die and begging to stop it, while Vox was excited as he heard Kisuki's despair. Vox started to sucking his soul, expressing a satisfaction that Kisuki's soul was delicious. While Enma was walking, he identified his next target as Kurakami Yaichi, the one who gave the order to kill Ayumi. Enma knew that he had few clues about them, and he wouldn't let them slip away with that. Meanwhile, Reika was watching Enma's stream. Reika gritted her teeth as she couldn't believe that one of his former companions had killed. Enma promises himself that for sure he will find them, and burns them to ashes. In the school, two students could be seen and asked their classmate if he heard the rumor about Enki the Flame Demon. The girl explained that he hides and commits crimes, then suddenly appears. That Enki, the Flame Demon, burns everything to ashes. In a cave where 4 people could be seen, the man threatens the 2 men not to don't move. The man pointed a sharp crystal at the woman's neck and asked if they were okay with the woman's fate, while the woman begged for help. The woman's name was Senna, and the bald man was worried that Ace was held hostage. The man ordered them to leave all their items and the magic stones. A man suddenly approached, calling their attention, as his phone was pointed at them, while the 2 men were surprised by the man's approach. The man exposed the name of the hostage, as Goro Shikihara, 29 years old, male, unemployed E-rank hunter. He's taken hostages and threatened over 20 hunters, and hasn't killed anyone. It turns out it was Enma, saying the 3 hunters died due to having their equipment stolen. The bald man asked what he was doing and ordered him to stop the camera, while the audience was surprised by their situation. Goro warned them not to come any closer, and the audience wondered if he really going to burn them both. Then Enma exposes the name of the woman as Ace Yano, 21 years old, female, part-time worker, and a D-rank hunter. Enma explained that Ace pretended to be a beginner and infiltrated the party to become a hostage herself, and the 2 men were surprised by it. Enma stated that Goro's accomplice number, when he learned he caused someone's death, he tried to turn himself in, but he was forced into compliance through violence and became the main offender. Ace's face turned serious, and Goro was surprised by the sudden change in her face, while the audience was surprised as well. Ace got infuriated and called Enma, stating he was invading her privacy. Ace rushed towards Enma as she swung her fist, and an overwhelming power flowed to her fist. She punched the floor, and it created a strong impact on the ground, while Enma immediately dodged it. Her 2 companions still couldn't believe that Ace could do that thing to them. Enma smiled and asked what he should do about people like them. Ace was disappointed, and Goro as well, as she asked why Enma dodged her attack and didn't die. Enma explained that they brought themselves in, and he cast a skill called Blowing Up. Ace started to cast her punch and told Enma that he would turn him into a hamburger. Enma quickly dodged her attack, and Enma teased her that he loves hamburgers too. As Enma landed on the ground, he cast his skill called Purgatory. Enma immediately attacked it towards Ace, and Ace started to scream as she was burning alive. The man tried to help Ace, and the bald man stopped him, saying he had to wake up as they needed to escape from this place. The bald man suspected that Enma might be the rumors that they had heard of. Enma was walking on flames and nothing like happened. Enma pointed his finger, saying let her sins burn her away. The fire ate her alive, and Enma stated that she owed a debt to those 3 who died. Not long after, Ace's body turned into ashes, while Goro was left speechless as his eyes were filled with tears. Enma shifted his attention as he called Goro, since he had crime. Enma made him a choice if he could either turn himself in or turn to ashes there. Goro responded that he would turn himself in, and the audience got mad, demanding proof that it was Ace's fault. Enma read the audience comments and clarified if they needed proof about it. He chuckled and explained that he needed her for burning trash, and called him an idiot. The audience got mad, saying he must not be stupid, and if he had enough proof, he should go to the police, and others demanded to report Enma's stream. Enma slowly walked away, leaving Goro behind, while Goro bowed on the ground. Goro cried and thanked Enma for what he did, while Enma opened his phone as he was reading something. Turns out that Goro seeks some help from Enma, saying he was forced to kill by IA's threats and had video evidence of it. Enma stopped and told Goro that there was one thing he would like to ask for. Enma asked if he knew anything about the murderer in Ayumi's case. Vox yelled that he felt bored. He stated that the despair of Iace wasn't bad, and complained that it was too small to satisfy his needs. Vox said that if he could have caught Iace by surprise and burned her, he could have collected some real despair. Enma explained that it was his power, and he could use it however he liked. Vox chuckled and stated that he was crazy scary. Enma started to understand the abilities he'd gained from contracting with him, and he grew stronger the more he blazed. To be precise, the more viewers' anger rises through posts with hashtags, the hotter his flames become. Anger directed at Enma, anger at criminals, anger toward careless victims, and anger at unrelated things. All of the despair could be seen in different people, while each may be weak on its own. As the man was playing on his computer, his room was covered in trash. The sheer volume makes it significant. Enma looks at his phone as he gathers onlookers to vent is the most crucial factor, cause in the end, internet outrage is just about that. Vox asked what he was thinking and if he created that again. Enma dropped the name, and it's called Pilogram, as he explained that it's a dedicated app that allows for anonymous information exchange. Vox stated that it wasn't the kind of thing where he just posts something on some random board, and Enma informed that it would be fodder for trolls. It was enough for the contact information to spread via word of mouth. Enma stated that installing such a suspicious app to contact him requires some resolve. It serves as a good deterrent against pranks. Vox stated that the method wouldn't matter, but it will help him find what he'd been looking for. Vox agreed about those applications since they will help to find who killed Ayumi and her employer. Yaichi exposed himself while on a stream and committed his heinous acts, yet he hadn't been caught in a year. Enma knew that Yaichi was the kind of man he could just find randomly. Enma decided to draw Yaichi out by himself. As he posted it, Enma was delighted that his post was spreading faster, until the news of Enma's presence as a pursuer reached his ears. As he was scrolling, Enma noticed something that made him find interesting. The news that a Hunter Association's top brass, named Rokurinkin, has been urgently summoned and might go to Hun the Flame Demon. The next morning, a man asked his friend if he had seen what Enma's live stream was yesterday, and his friend responded that he had seen it and complimented that it was insane. In the stream, Enma cast his skill and ordered Iace to burn to death, and the two men wonder who would be the next target. At the Hunter Association headquarters, all of the officials had gathered and were talking about something. The official names were Fudy Jin, Rukawa Rei, Kimuro Shinji, Anya Chio, and Kazama Katomi. A man walked closer and thanked them for their time and effort to gather here today. It turns out it was the man named Shiramin Yoshito talking about their agenda. Yoshito stated that it was all about the criminal hunter named Flame Demon. As he clicked remote a picture of Enma who had been using his flame power, and Yoshito liked to finalize the Hunter Association stance. Jean spoke up and asked if that flame denim is avenging Ayumi's death. Jean stated that revenge is such a sad thing. Jean asked what if they offered leniency, promised help to catch the real culprit, and asked Enma to come forward. Rei started to switch the cards, saying that he was born with it, justifying murder for a reason that was not something an ethical guardian would say. Kazama spoke up and asked Rei if he thinks someone like that would come forward just on a promise, and she would ignore it if Wood were her. Shinji spoke up that people are dying. If they didn't stop him soon, he'd only fall deeper into misery. Anya suggested they should catch the one who killed Ayumi first. If they wanted to stop his revenge, arresting the real killer would be the first step. Yoshito agreed with her, saying the Hunter Association was created after Ayumi's death. In the face of the gate and the disaster known as the Messengers, they've just been focused on conquering them. Meanwhile, they've looked away from so many tragedies. Ayumi's case shocked the public, but it's only the tip of the iceberg. The Hunter Association was made to change that. Shinji told them that their weakness lets evil have its way. He added that people like the Flame Demon appear because they are unreliable. He suggested that they must accept the truth about it. Shinji and Anya were left speechless, since Yoshito was right about what he had just said. Rei asked what they were going to do, as he didn't care if some criminal turned to ash. Rei reminded Yoshito that if the civilians start getting hurt, it will be too late for them. Yoshito asked if that was his fortune card. Says. Rei stated that it's not finished yet. Yoshito stated that Rei's readings are accurate and reminded Rei that if he had any signs, he must know it. Yoshito assures them that he will cut him down by himself. Rei awkwardly laughed, saying he felt sorry for the Flame Demon. Rei couldn't care less about morals or justice. Ray agreed to Yoshido's idea of making the Hunter Association was because he figured he could profit by becoming an executive, as he thought he could easily control that clueless rich kid. But Ray saw it. Even if the rank only goes up to A class, Yoshido's is on another level as an awakened. Gene called everyone as he smiled and stated that they must calm down. Gene explained they must hate the sin, not the sinner, and he was sure they could come to an understanding, as he suggested, leave the flame demon on him. Ray responded that it suited him, and Shinji agreed, saying if that's what he wanted. Yoshido called him and was about to say something, but Gene explained that a resolution where everyone ends up smiling, and he wanted that as well. Gene smiled, making them not worry about it, which Yoshido saw and smiled as well. Yoshido decided and announced that they would entrust that case to Gene, and if they find any leads, report it to Gene as soon as possible. After the meeting, Gene was heading to a room. As he reached the room, all of the staff were surprised, and the member of the 6 ring swords. Gene smiled at them, saying he was fine and not to worry about him. Gene walks closer to one of the staff, apologizing for the disturbance, and asks if he has found anything on the matter he asked about. The man clarified if it was all about the flame demon, and Gene asked if there was any problem with it. Gene stated that the demon flame showed his face on the stream, and it should be hard to ID him. The man felt the pressure from Gene and worked as much as he could. The man started to process the video from the stream, saying Gene would understand if he saw it. The man explained as they tried to analyze the footage. As the footage was processing, the file started to glitch. The footage turned into an error, and Gene couldn't believe what he just saw. The man explained that the analysis keeps getting blocked, to the point that they asked people who saw it. One of the witnesses described the flame demon like a kid, but also like an adult, handsome or maybe ugly. The witness added that he had black-haired flame user and asked if he was a guy. The witness stated he couldn't remember at all, that it's like there was a fog over his memory, and the man scratched his head in disappointment. Meanwhile, Enma holds a contact lens, and asks Vox what he means by it. Vox explained it was a Shiloum scale. Anyone wearing it won't leave an impression even when showing their face, and even if caught on camera, their identity wouldn't be exposed. Vox clarified that he could see them, but he didn't see them, and he could remember but couldn't recall. That's the kind of effect it has. Enma was surprised and asked if demons could do anything, which Vox described it just you, but human brains are so pathetic. Vox stated that he was starving, and if Enma died on him, that'd be a real problem. Enma quickly understood it, saying he would wear it, and Vox stated that if anyone tries to dig into his identity, they'll get a nice big dose of despair. The man explained they couldn't analyze him, and no one remembers anything, even when they asked. The man awkwardly smiled and apologized that they didn't know anything about him. Due to frustration, Jin's hands clench the chair, and the chair starts to crack. The man noticed something odd and quickly turned around in the chair. The man was slowly looking at Jin, and he was terrified about what he had just seen. Jin's face got infuriated, and he turned into a demon mode, as he gritted his teeth. The man quickly turned back and wondered if that was Jin, since Jin always smiled at them. Jin stated that it wouldn't be easy to pin that down, and it was troublesome, and the man was surprised that Jin quickly changed his facial reaction. Jin slowly walked away, reminded the man to continue investigating, and if he found anything, let him know, and the man agreed. The man called his friend and was about to say something. As he was about to say something, Jin quickly walked closer to the man, put a creepy smile on him, and asked if he had already found something. Jin moved closer to his ear and asked if he could share it with him, and the man, covered with cold sweats and was terrified. The man quickly explained that it was nothing, just his mistake, and Jin stated that he was a talented person, and he was counting on him, which the man agreed to. As Jin left the building, he was escorted by his assistant and driver. Jin held his face and summoned his skill called metamorphosis, as a violet aura flowed to his body. Jin's body began to slowly transform from hair to his body formation and facial structure. Jin ordered his assistant to track Enki through the underground route, too, and his assistant understood it as he called him Lord Fukakuri. The assistant quickly apologized and called him Yai-Chi. Yai-Chi stated that when a dog bares its fangs, crushes its face, and peels its skin, with the Rokurinkin and Yai-Chi, they corner him on both sides, front and back. Vox asked about Rokurinkin, as it sounded like a Chinese restaurant, and Enma explained it was a nickname for the top brass in the Hunter Union. One represents each attribute. Turns out they were chasing a man, and Vox asked what he meant by attributes. Enma explained that awakened powers vary, but they were fundamentally split into 6 attributes, and then light and darkness. Each awakened person fits into one of those categories. How the attributes mix, plus their mindset and desire to awaken, determine the abilities they have. Enma described it as a rare and unusual mix that will lead to unique attributes or power, and Vox was confused that humans are weird creatures. Vox asked what happens if their wish doesn't match their attribute. Enma was amazed by his question, saying he was about to find out. A fat man was terrified and asked who they were and why they were following him. Enma exposed the man's name as Nagatsugu Igawa, an E-rank hunter, a 36-year-old male philanthropist, and the audience knows him. Igawa was a guy who collected donations for the gate orphans. Enma explained that once children who had lost their parents in the gate disaster were called gate orphans. Egawa was one of the people who stepped on to help them. Enma explained that most of the donations went to his greed. The orphans were forced into exploitative labor. Egawa got infuriated, saying it was a false accusation, and asked him if he had any proof about child labor. Enma walks closer to the man and shows him the video that he shares on the stream. Egawa stated that Enma was still useless. Enma chuckled and asked if it was his last words, and cast his flames on his hands. As Egawa saw it, water had immediately appeared and was flowing on his body. Egawa stated that he didn't do anything wrong, and he was not the bad guy, while he summoned his skill called Aqua Golem. On the stream, Egawa was covered by water, and the audience wondered if fire could even beat water. Enma knew that an Aqua Golem is a terrifying power that turns water into a giant, but its true nature was Egawa's vanity and wanting to look bigger. Enma described Egawa as a desperate, stubborn, and ugly way far calm waters and flexibility. While Egawa was forming hands using his Aqua Golem, Egawa immediately attacks his Aqua Golem hands towards Enma, saying to deal with it. Egawa chuckled, saying it was Enma's fault since he defied him. Enma easily countered it using his flame, which confused Egawa. Enma walks closer, mocking Egawa that an empty show-off's gold has no real power. Egawa's Aqua Golem didn't affect Enma's power. Even though his hands were touched by water, it didn't stop there. Egawa was confused and asked why his water was boiling, as the boiled water was coming towards him. Enma heated the water even more, saying his sins will burn him to ash. Egawa screamed for help as the boiling water reached his body, and he screamed in agony. Enma stated, despite shouting an advanced spell that was beginner-level tops, while Egawa's dead body was lying on the ground. Enma bids goodbye to his audience, and his audience is worried about the orphans. Vox spoke up, saying Egawa was a pathetic excuse for despair, and asked why he chose Egawa to be killed. Enma explained that Ayumi and him are gate orphans too. They stayed at Egawa's facility for a while. Vox stated that Egawa panicked and self-destructed trying to protect his fake image, calling Egawa a small-time crook. Enma cast a flame on his hands, stating that because of that exposure, the backlash is fuel. Enma stated that he was not like Egawa, since he made a contract with Vox and gained fire, a power that grows stronger the more he burns. Arsonist. Enma assured that he would master it no matter what and clenched his fist. Vox was confused and asked if he had fire powers. Vox realized something that made him smirk. He agreed with what Enma said, saying he was rooting for him, and repeated the word attribute. Vox explained that some people just don't fit in those boxes. Enma changed the topic, informing Vox that they have an appointment, and they should go as soon as possible. Enma received a text announcing that their name is finally getting out there. Enma and Vox quickly left the place. In the text, it was said that they needed to talk to him about Ayumi and Reika Minace. Enma and Vox are heading to the location where the unknown person told them. In the text, the unknown person wanted to know what happened to Ayumi and Reika. Enma remembered who Reika was, since she used to be a classic gate streamer and still she was the same. Enma quickly clicked her stream. In Reika's stream, she was flaunting her body, teasing her viewers, and they were donating a huge amount to her stream. Enma felt disgusted and wondered why her content shifted a bit. Vox asked about Reika and Ayumi's relationship, and Enma explained that Reika was her senior streamer. Enma clarified that Ayumi got a lot of help from Reika. Vox stated that Reika looks like a good person. Enma stated that Ayumi followed Reika's advice and went solo into a gate, where Yaichi was waiting, and the tragic death of Ayumi. Vox knew something was not right about Reika, and Enma recalled that there were troll comments on the stream from that time, where it says they had uncensored footage of Reika meeting with a semi-gang group. Enma recalled his name was named as Doggy, the one who contacted him and left that comment, while Vox chuckled and knew it didn't seem a prank or fake info. Enma stopped and checked the surroundings, saying it was the meetup spot, while Vox stated he didn't know what the unknown person looked like. Vox describes him as a type of person who talks trash from the shadows, and he's gonna be one of those obvious small-time crooks. Enma pointed to a woman, saying maybe she was that one, and the woman was surrounded by two men. The yellow-haired man was slowly approaching the woman, saying that walking around alone is dangerous. Vox clapped his hands and stated that Enma was right. As the woman covered her face, the yellow-haired man instructed the woman that he wanted to show him her face. The bald man grabbed the woman's hair, and the two men were excited as they checked her face. The bald man was surprised and confused the moment he saw the woman's face. The woman burst into tears and begged not to look at her. The bald man quickly let go of her and showed disgust at her. The bald man decided not to touch her and called his companion to leave the place, while the woman quickly fixed her hood as she apologized to them. Enma called them, and the two men immediately stopped as they turned around to see who was calling them. Enma stated how dare they judge other people's looks, and asks if they have ever heard of a mirror. The yellow-haired man quickly reacted, asking who he was, and the bald man stated that he was messing with the wrong people. Enma walks closer to the two men, and the woman wonders if Enma isn't awakened. Enma cast his flame, saying a cinder should be enough to take them down. Enma looks at his power, That scandal is like fire, it doesn't die down right after the stream ends. It just fuels itself and spreads, burning on, as he could draw power from that too. Enma knew that it wasn't as strong as live reactions, but more than enough for small fry, while the two men rush towards Enma. Enma strikes them with a powerful flame shot attack, and the two men push away. The yellow-haired man was screaming as his hair was burning, and the bald man's hands as well. Enma called them, asking which of them was named Doggy. The two men were confused upon hearing the Doggy name, and the bald man asked what he was talking about. Enma was disappointed and clarified if it wasn't them. The woman clears her throat, and Enma shifts his attention to the woman. The woman informed Enma that she was the one he'd been looking for. The woman introduced herself as Doggy and greeted Enma as well. The two men started to run out of the place, and Enma clarified if she was the one he was talking about. They headed to a room where it was messy, and some of the things were on the floor. Doggy started to confess that he had been working as Reika's assistant before. Doggy explained that she helps prepare for Reika's shoots, organizes her gear, and then she sees Reika meeting with them. Doggy recalled the day she saw Reika and Yaichi meet each other. So, Doggy hid herself and witnessed that Reika was talking about Yaichi. Doggy was shocked that they were talking about Ayumi, and she needed to tell someone about it. Doggy explained that she was scared they would find out, and Enma understood why she slipped it on as a troll comment. Doggy never expected that it would turn into the drastic death of Ayumi. Enma realized that Reika was really involved about Ayumi's tragic death. Enma asked if Reika and Yaichi were still meeting, and Doggy agreed, but it doesn't seem like things are going well between them. Reika rushed into the bar where Yaichi was, complaining that an Avenger was sniffing around about Ayumi. Reika threatens Yaichi that if someone found out about her, something bad would happen. Yaichi was confused and asked what she was talking about, since she was the one who hired him. Yaichi smirked, saying Reika was the one who killed Ayumi. Reika disagreed and explained that she just told him to scare Ayumi, and he was the one who killed her. Yaichi teased Reika, suggesting that she try telling that to Enki and see if he lets her off. Reika was left speechless, as she just gritted her teeth due to frustration. Doggy stated that ever since that day, Reika has been extorting hush money. Doggy was disappointed that no matter how she worked, Reika took almost all of it. Reika's hands were shaking, as she was infuriated and couldn't do anything. Reika couldn't hold it anymore and called Yaichi a scumbag. Yaichi asked if she had ever heard of a mirror. Yaichi stated that since they were done talking, and ordered his members to send her out. The bald man quickly held her, and the other man asked if she liked kinky stuff as he was looking at Reika's body. The man held Reika's face, saying he could protect her, but there was a condition. As he was talking, the man's ear got shot and burst out of nowhere. The man sat down on the floor, as his hands were covered in blood, and Reika told the man not to touch her. Yaichi saw something unusual on the wall and shifted his attention to it. The wall had a hole in it, and the bullet shot came from there. Reika stated that they got the wrong idea, and she came in the place to complain as she never asked him for help. Reika informed Yaichi that she hadn't fallen so low and needed him to protect her. Yaichi chuckled, saying she was pretty funny. Meanwhile, Doggy heard all of their conversation, which made her sad. Doggy was disappointed and regretted herself as she couldn't save Ayumi back then, and decided to expose them. Enma understood now, saying she was still connected to Reika. Doggy called Enma Enki and was confused about Enma's reaction. Enma chuckled and clarified if he could burn it all down, as he started laughing wickedly. Enma clarified that Reika and Yaichi are still connected and asked how they could meet Reika. Doggy asked what she wanted from Reika. Doggy explained that she used to stream gate raids, but she got seriously injured during a raid, which is why her face was full of scars. Doggy knew she was a mess back then, as she was sitting in the rain, and didn't know what to do. Reika picked her up when she was at his lowest. Doggy knew she was not exactly a good person while they were crossing the road, and Doggy was out of balance and slipped on the ground. Reika smiled and offered her hand to help Doggy. Since that day, Doggy knew that she owed her everything. Doggy stated that it was her reason why she and Reika had met. Enma asked what her purpose was to meet him and give him info that would put Reika in danger. Doggy rushed closer to Enma, stating that if she didn't, Enki would be killed. Enma was confused, clarifying if she meant to say was no one should die. Doggy asked if that was her plan was wrong. Doggy explained that even in dangerous times, especially because of them, Doggy wanted both good and bad people to stay alive if possible. Her eyes filled with tears, and she asked if want was weird. Enma recalled Ayumi's lovely face, stating that Ayumi had died. Enma stated that Ayumi killed like trash. Enma explained that it was far away from kindness and its weakness. After hearing, Doggy was left speechless and realized that Enma was right. Doggy informed Enma that Reika will be at the Live House Arc in the East Ruins this Saturday, and she double-checked the schedule, assuring there was no mistake. Enma thanked Doggy, and Doggy stated that she kept it in her mind. Reika tricked her as well. Doggy bids farewell to Enma, but Enma stops her. Enma informed Doggy that if Reika apologized to Ayumi, he wouldn't take her life. Enma had a plan for it, while Doggy was confused about what he said. The rest of the day, Enma and Doggy are talking and planning how to catch Reika. Saturday evening in the Ruins District City. The areas were heavily contaminated in the Gate disaster 10 years ago and cursed with dark element toxins and hexes. They were still death zones where normal people can't live, and the only ones there were those resistant to monster poison and strays awakened with nowhere else to go. Vox and Enma arrived in the area, looking for something. As they stop, Vox asks what he thinks about it, and Enma clarifies what he means. Vox stated that they could trust Doggy, or she must be a trap. They reached the Ark, where Doggy said to them, and Enma stated whether is black or white they will know once they get there. Vox informed Enma that he would bet on black. Enma opened the door, saying he was bad at betting. He explained that if they were both black, it's not much of a bet, and a group of men was staring at Enma. The men were smiling at Enma, as they were excited to kill him. They confidently and immediately rushed towards Enma, as they swung their fist to attack Enma. Reika was in the corridor and asking her if that was Enma, as she thought Enma came alone, or maybe she had gathered too many people. Doggy called her and asked what she was doing and who these people were. Reika explained that 10 years ago, when 24% of the population awakened power, it was pure chaos, and some people went wild, lashing out to vent their frustrations. But as things stabilized, those trash people had nowhere left to go, and now they cling to the shadows of the ruins. Reika knew they would cause all the chaos they needed, and warned her not to underestimate the veteran hunters network. Doggy felt anxious, saying she knew that Enma would come. Reika walks closer to Doggy, glaring at her, saying she knew that he would come. Reika smiled wickedly, thanking Doggy for leading him to this place, calling her a dumb puppy, as she saw it right away through her plan. Doggy couldn't believe what Reika said, and she felt mixed emotions. Reika wondered if Enma already knew the truth behind Ayumi's death. Reika, concerned now, was cleaning the dead bodies, as the fire occurred in the center of the place. Reika's attention shifted as she looked at Enma's ability, wondering what kind of firepower he had. All the men were burned alive as they were screaming in pain, while Enma was starting to stream. Enma pointed his camera at Reika, thanking her for the undeniable proof, and called her name. The audience of the stream couldn't believe that Reika was the mastermind, and demanded Enma to burn her. Turns out that Doggy had a mic under her hoodie, which their conversation earlier had revealed. Enma exposed her that when the time she attacked Ayumi, and ended up a killer from the chaos she caused. Enma stated that he knew Reika would show up in this place. As she was checking his stream, Reika got annoyed and asked why her voice was being streamed, which she quickly turned around suspecting Doggy was the one. Doggy handed her the device, explaining that if he got even one word of apology on Ayumi, he would spare her. Doggy burst into tears, saying she believed that somewhere deep down on Reika regretted it too. Reika dropped her phone and asked if everything went exactly as she planned it. Reika got infuriated as she summoned her sword, saying Enma must not be too confident about it. She yelled Enma's nickname and swung her sword, aiming at Enma. Enma called Reika's name as she exposed her identity, a 24-year-old female streamer and a B-rank hunter. Enma is accused of killing Ayumi, and the flame was getting even stronger. That's all for today, and if you want the next part, leave a comment and hit the like button. Thank you and see you on my next upload.